Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're going to be looking at optimal liquidation strategies in
Oh,
high-frequency trading.
sounds intense.
It is,
Yeah.
especially when we're dealing with incomplete market information.
Right. You don't have the full picture.
Yeah, exactly. And you send over this research paper, Optimal Execution, under incomplete information.
Oh, yeah, that one.
And let me tell you,
It's a doozy.
it is. It really got me thinking about all the challenges involved with,
Like what?
well, trying to sell a large chunk of stock
Yeah, okay.
when the market's moving super fast.
Yeah.
You've got market depth to think about, liquidity constraints, price impact. It's a lot.
It's like trying to navigate a speedboat through a thick fog.
Oh, that's good.
There are obstacles out there, but
You can't see them.
exactly.
That's a perfect analogy. So this paper, it starts by talking about order flow.
Okay.
And it uses this really interesting analogy of a rushing river
Oh.
to represent, the constant stream of buy and sell orders flooding the market.
I like that.
Yeah. And this is where it gets even more interesting because they use something called
Let me guess.
mutually stimulating marked Hawkes processes
Wow.
to model this flow.
That's a mouthful.
It is. It sounds kind of sci-fi, but
But what does it mean?
basically it means that an order happening can actually make other similar orders more likely.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly, like a domino effect,
I'm starting to see why you said this was intense.
right?
So it's not just about predicting the market's moves, it's also about how your own actions can shape the market.
Totally. It adds a whole new layer of complexity.
For sure.
And the paper goes even further than that. They don't just work with a simple limit order book.
Right, a block-shaped one.
Yeah. They recognize that real order books have, varying depth.
Ah, depth, like how deep the ocean is.
Well, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like this. You're at a concert. Everyone wants the best seats in the house.
Mm-hmm. The front row.
Yeah. The more people fighting for those prime spots, the deeper the
Yeah.
market is for those tickets.
Okay, so deeper means more competition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More orders stacked up at a specific price.
Which you mean?
It's easier to buy or sell without drastically changing the price.
Gotcha. Make sense?
But here's the thing. The paper calls this depth hidden.
Hidden, like it's a secret.
Well, not exactly secret, but like an iceberg, You only see the tip above the water.
But there's a whole lot more lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. In the stock market, you only see the orders that are currently visible.
Right.
But there's a whole world of potential orders that could pop up at any moment.
Ah, that's the hidden liquidity.
You got it.
So it's like you're navigating a market, but you can't see the whole terrain.
Yeah. It could lead to some nasty surprises.
Definitely. And that's why this paper is so cool.
How so?
Well, it acknowledges that liquidity is constantly changing.
It's not static.
Nope. And you have to be really smart to handle it well.
Savvy. So how do you navigate this? You can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best.
No. The paper talks about this technique called stochastic filtering.
Okay.
Think of it like sonar.
Sonar. Like a bat see.
Sort of. You're sending out sound waves and analyzing the echoes.
To map the ocean floor.
Exactly. And in trading, you're using the visible orders as your sound waves.
To get a better sense of that hidden liquidity.
Exactly. You're being proactive, trying to map out those hidden depths instead of just reacting to what you see on the surface.
That's pretty clever.
It's essential, especially when you're dealing with large orders. You don't want to jump into a market where the liquidity is way shallower than you thought.
Right. That'd be bad.
Okay, so now we've got a handle on the order flow and this whole hidden liquidity situation.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. But now let's get to the heart of the matter. The actual liquidation problem.
Right. How to actually sell off a big chunk of stock without causing the price to plummet.
Yeah, and the paper dives into this concept of impulse control.
Impulse control. Like resisting the urge to eat that whole bag of chips.
Well, kind of. It's about making strategic moves at just the right time.
Okay, like a skilled archer carefully aiming their arrows.
Got it. With impulse control, you're aiming for those moments when you can sell portions of your stock without spooking the market.
Without causing a sudden price drop.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But how do you know when to make those moves? It's not like the market sends out a memo saying, hey, now's a good time to sell.
True, but that's where the insights from this paper come in handy.
Okay, tell me more.
They've developed a framework for analyzing different market factors.
Like what?
Well, Things like order flow, the current price, and even your own beliefs about where the market's heading.
So you have to factor in your own gut feeling about the market.
Exactly. It's all about using those signals to figure out the best times to make your move.
It's starting to sound like a high-stakes game of chess where every move has consequences.
You're catching on. And it's not just about when you sell, it's also about how and much you sell at once.
Oh, right. Like selling everything at once is probably not the best idea.
You got it. The paper talks about permanent and transient price impacts.
Okay, what's the difference? Is it like one's a bruise and one's a broken bone?
Haha, I like that. Imagine you're trying to sell a massive chunk of stock all at once.
Okay.
That's like dropping a boulder into a calm pond.
Big splash.
Huge disruption, a permanent price impact that takes a long time to recover from.
But if you sell smaller amounts over time,
That's more like tossing pebbles into the pond. Smaller ripples that fade away quickly.
transient price impact.
You got it.
So it's all about finding that balance between selling quickly and minimizing the damage to the price.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance.
And the paper goes into the math behind it.
It does, using some pretty sophisticated equations to determine the optimal selling strategy.
Wow, this is way more complex than I initially thought.
It's a lot, but it's fascinating, right?
It is. I already feel like my brain is getting a workout.
And we're just getting started. The paper also includes some really cool visualizations that help bring all these concepts to life.
Visualizations. I love visuals. I'm a very visual learner, so I'm excited to see what they came up with.
Okay, well then let's move on to part 2, where we'll explore those visualizations and see how those optimal strategies play out in a simulated market.
Sounds good. I'm ready for round 2.
You know those permanent and transient price impacts?
Oh, yeah, the boulder versus pebbles thing?
Exactly. Well, let's dive a little deeper into that.
Okay.
Think about it like this. The market can only handle so much selling all at once.
Right, if you flood it.
Yeah, it's like that boulder
Creating a huge splash,
and long-lasting waves.
but breaking up a large order.
Right, into smaller chunks.
Like tossing in those pebbles.
Exactly, smaller ripples, and they disappear much faster.
Okay, so less disruption, quicker recovery.
That's the idea. And this is where the paper's emphasis on timing comes in.
Okay, I was just thinking about that.
It's not just how much you sell, but how you sell it.
Like spreading it out over time.
Yeah, like a chef,
Okay.
carefully dicing ingredients.
Ah, instead of just hacking away.
Exactly. Precision over brute force.
I like that.
Yeah.
So this paper emphasizes finding the optimal strategy,
Right.
striking that balance between speed and minimizing those price ripples.
They call it impulse control.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
So resisting that urge to just dump everything at once?
And taking a strategic approach.
Exactly. But the question is, how do you know when to make those strategic moves?
Right. The market doesn't exactly send out a newsletter.
No. But the paper provides some really useful guidance on that.
Okay, how so?
They developed this framework,
Okay.
that takes into account several factors.
Like what?
Well, order flow, for one, also current price.
Okay.
And get this, even your own beliefs about where the market's headed.
So like your gut feeling.
In a way, yeah. It's like trying to read those tea leaves.
Ooh, mystical.
Yeah. Looking for hints that tell you when it's safe to dip your toes in.
And the market's mood can change quickly, right?
All the time. Some days, it's calm, predictable.
But other days,
Jittery.
like it drank too much coffee.
Exactly. And in those volatile markets,
Oh, yeah.
even a small trade can trigger a huge reaction.
So you need to be really careful.
Super careful. You don't want to be the one who sets off a market-wide panic.
Right. Like tiptoeing through a minefield.
A bit dramatic, but yeah,
Okay, so to understand these concepts.
they have these visualizations,
Oh, I was hoping you'd say that.
contour plots,
Okay.
that show how the best strategy changes based on market conditions.
It's like a map of the market.
Kind of like
Yeah.
a roadmap, yeah.
Awesome. What else do they show?
Well, when the market's calm and there's lots of liquidity,
Right.
you can be more aggressive with selling.
All right.
When things are choppy and liquidity's scarce.
Like our jittery coffee drinker.
Exactly. You got to be way more cautious.
Makes sense. So these plots,
They highlight those shifts.
and they show you how to adjust.
It's like a GPS for trading.
Ooh, I like that. But instead of streets.
You're navigating order flow and price impacts.
Okay, that's a really cool way to think about it. But the visualizations don't stop there, right?
Nope. They also have these charts that show how the optimal order sizes change depending on the market's sensitivity.
Sensitivity. Like being allergic to peanuts.
Kind of. Some stocks, they overreact to big orders.
So it's like they have a hair trigger?
Exactly. Even a small sale can make the price plummet.
So you have to be super careful with those sensitive stocks,
You have to handle them with care. Yeah,
like delicate china,
precisely. And the charts show you exactly how to adjust,
based on that sensitivity.
how many pebbles you can toss in without creating a tsunami.
Okay, I'm really starting to get this. This is so much more complex than I thought.
It really makes you appreciate the intricacies of the market.
Absolutely. So the paper mainly focuses on liquidating a single stock, right?
That's right.
But what if you have a whole portfolio of assets,
Good question.
especially if they're interconnected, like companies in the same industry?
That takes things to a whole other level.
Because you can't treat each stock in isolation.
Definitely not, because selling one,
Could affect the others.
it's like a domino effect. One falling piece can trigger a cascade.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So what's the best strategy in that situation?
Well, it becomes much more about coordination,
Okay.
finding the right sequence
They're selling each one.
to avoid a market meltdown.
This sounds like an air traffic controller's job.
Haha, I can see that. Managing all those stocks instead of planes.
Instead of runways.
It's market liquidity.
Okay, that analogy really helps.
Glad to hear it. And portfolio managers in this situation use really sophisticated tools.
To track all those connections and make split-second decisions.
Exactly. This is definitely beyond my pay grade.
Yeah, mine too. I'm glad there are experts out there who can handle this.
Me too. But this research paper is pretty dense.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but it's really interesting.
It's awesome that you dove into it.
Well, I love these deep dives, always uncovering new information.
And this one is a real gem.
Absolutely. I'm eager to see how these strategies perform in action, though.
Well, the authors actually put their theories to the test.
Oh, they did?
They created a virtual market, a simulation.
So they could see which algorithms were the best.
Exactly. Like a trading algorithm showdown.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear who won.
Well, then let's move on to part 3, where we can witness those algorithms in action and see if the optimal strategies really live up to the hype.
All right, spill the tea. What happened in this algorithm showdown?
Well, picture this. A virtual stock market, buzzing with activity, prices going up and down, orders flying in left and right, all simulated, of course.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And then they unleashed a bunch of different algorithms.
Oh, so they were like gladiators.
Kind of. Each one had its own strategy for trying to offload a big block of stock.
Cool. So instead of swords and shields.
They're armed with lines of code, mathematical models, and trading secrets.
Okay, so who were the contestants in this epic battle?
Well, they had a few different approaches in the mix. First up, there was the naive strategy.
Naive? What does that even mean?
It basically means just dumping all the shares on the market all at once.
Oh, yikes. That doesn't sound very strategic.
It's not. Think of it like trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, lots of force, but not very effective.
Right. It's like trying to fit an elephant into a Mini Cooper.
Haha, exactly. And the simulations actually proved that point. This naive approach, well, it led to the highest trading costs and the biggest price drops.
Ouch. So the market really didn't like that approach.
Nope. It just couldn't absorb all that selling pressure at once. Remember that boulder in the pond analogy?
Oh, yeah. Total market chaos.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on to the next contender.
Okay, who is next in line?
This one was a bit more refined, a time-based approach.
Time-based. So like selling at certain times a day.
Not necessarily. It's more like selling a fixed amount of shares, but at regular intervals.
So like every hour.
Yeah, could be every minute, every hour, something like that. Think of it like a metronome, steadily ticking away, releasing those shares into the market.
Okay, so more measured than just dumping everything at once.
Right, it's more controlled.
But I'm guessing it still wasn't the most elegant solution.
You're right. While it did perform better than that first naive approach, it still resulted in some price impacts and higher costs compared to those optimal strategies we talked about.
Ah, so it still wasn't quite dancing to the market's tune.
Exactly. It lacked that adaptability, that ability to respond to the market's cues.
So what about those optimal strategies? They sound pretty intriguing. What set them apart from the rest?
Well, remember that impulse control concept we discussed?
Oh yeah, those carefully timed bursts of selling.
Right. Those optimal algorithms, they were designed to be much more responsive to the market signals, kind of like those skilled dancers who can anticipate their partner's next move.
Okay, so they were more in sync with the market's rhythm?
Precisely. They weren't bound by rigid rules or set time intervals. They were constantly analyzing the order flow, price movements, that hidden liquidity, all those factors that could influence how the market would react.
It almost sounds like they were reading the market's mind.
Uh-huh, in a way. But really, it all boils down to data and algorithms. They used a combination of advanced math models and machine learning to give those algorithms a real edge.
Machine learning. So like they were actually learning from the market as they went.
Exactly. They were trained on tons of historical market data, allowing them to recognize patterns and adapt to new situations. It's like they were constantly learning and improving their strategies.
Wow. So they weren't just crunching numbers, they were actually becoming more intelligent traders over time.
That's the power of machine learning. And the results, well, they speak for themselves. In those simulations, those optimal strategies, they consistently outperformed all those benchmark approaches. They achieved way lower trading costs and minimized those price impacts.
So it wasn't just some theoretical idea,
Right.
it actually worked.
It did. And the cool thing is, as more market data becomes available, those algorithms can keep learning and refining their strategies.
So they just keep getting better and better. That's amazing.
It really is. It's kind of like those self-driving cars that are always learning and adapting to new roads and traffic patterns.
It makes you wonder what the future holds for trading.
I know. This is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to using AI and machine learning in finance.
Well, this has been one of the most fascinating deep dives yet. We explored order flow, uncovered hidden liquidity, and even witnessed a virtual trading showdown.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And I couldn't have done it without your expert guide.
Anytime. I always enjoy our deep dives.
Me too. They really make you appreciate the complexities of the financial world.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a wrap for today's deep dive. Until next time, folks, keep those curious minds engaged because there's always something new to learn.